it was appropriated for the towns, but I did during COVID. They stopped. There was only one grant that was awarded that year in 2020, and it went to Pomfret only because they had got permission to execute the grant early. But right after that, everything stopped. So we try to get the money out the door as fast as possible so that if there's a shortfall somewhere and they see, the district, one of the districts has $300,000 or $400,000 just sitting there, it wasn't allocated to or committed to a town, we want to make sure they don't grab that. And the money gets used for the purpose it was in. So, like I said, there's actually 3 grants here. There's structures of class 2 and what we call a town highway emergency grant. So if there was like a storm event that caused damage to a town roadway or a bridge, it may be covered, may be possible for the town to have that covered under a state-funded town highway emergency grant. Now, if FEMA declares the event, likely the town highway grant would not, or the emergency grant wouldn't be used unless, for instance, if FEMA were to decline or to deny the damage. They can be fussy on dealing with some slope issues. So it was something we would look at, but usually there might be a microburst somewhere, a town loses a bridge or a section of roadway. The important thing, and Rick's been through this with us before, is that the district gets notified. I would be the point of contact, and then we would come out and look at the damage, assess it, and then there's some threshold information we gotta look at. So, like anything you get from the government, there's always some requirements that goes along with it. So, the towns get state aid to town highways. They get paid a specific dollar amount per mile of class 1, 2, and 3 town highways. There's not a whole lot of requirements for that, but one of the requirements is that the town fill out a annual financial plan and submit it to the district for review, and then we'll sign off on it. And I got a couple copies of it here. It's probably not a good time to really get into the detail, the weeds on it at a select board meeting, but I'm happy to sit down with the road foreman and the treasurer and anybody from the select board that wants to go over it. We used to actually rough some of these out for the towns, but it's better if the towns can get to the point where they can do this really on their own. It's not that complicated, but oftentimes people just look at it as like, I have no clue as to what goes here. But it's a budget, it's not accounting. And it's basically, you're showing what money you're coming in from the state and for other grants and stuff, and how you intend to use it. And like I said, it's just a budget, is all it is. It's not accounting, it may not get used. So by statute, to get the state aid to the class 1, 2, and 3 highway, you have to do this. We also use this document if there was a disaster and we're gonna look at using a town highway emergency grant, because that's one of the thresholds, and this breaks up the town's funds between non-winter and winter maintenance. So what we would look at is 10% of the non-winter maintenance budget. If that would be a threshold for what we would cover in a state-funded emergency grant. So if the town has $100,000 in non-winter maintenance in their budget, then the threshold would be about $10,000. Now, there's some other things where we adjust that a little, but that's pretty rough. So it's not just to check the box thing doing this. We want to review it. We don't want it artificially low so that everything qualifies, should you go. We want an accurate one, but we want to make sure it's not incorrectly too high. Because then if you do, then if there was some sort of storm event and you had some damage, you know, you haven't pushed yourself out of the chance of getting a grant. So that's the emergency grant. The Class 2 grants can be used for roadway reconstruction, roadway paving, culverts, small culverts under 36 inches in diameter. Maybe some ditching. They cannot be used for any pedestrian projects, sidewalks and stuff like that, because that's covered under other programs. So they're often used for paving or resurfacing, but you can resurface a gravel road with gravel. So that's a good use for them. What I gave you here, one of these, I gotta put my glasses on. One of these reports, both these reports are a grant distribution money in District 4 over a 10-year period, okay? So the one that says Town Highway Class 2 Roadway Program, okay? I highlighted through Chelsea, so you can see where you've gotten grants in the 10-year period, and to be transparent, all of our towns in District 4 are on this report, okay? So it was directed many years ago that the Class 2 grant program, the districts would try to distribute the funds equitably, not equally, but equitably. And so ideally, each town has a certain number of Class 2 town highway miles, and that's over in the second column on the left, okay? And Chelsea's got 8.7, okay? If you total that up, Chelsea's percent of Class 2 funding is 3.34%, right? So with an equitable distribution, we would want Chelsea to have received over this period the same percentage in funding, okay? But it's never exact. It's always going up in town because, you know, as we get, I guess the best way to say, you know, the grants are based on certain usual dollars amounts. That the grants max out at 200,000, you know, you get a grant and it can throw your percentage way off. But if you were to look at grant funding spent, dollars per mile, mathematically that's very close to comparing the two percentages. So we can just look at dollars per mile and sort this in Excel, and this is kind of sorted on the order. I hate to use the word precedence, but who would be in line for a grant this coming fiscal year? Okay, so this right now, Chelsea got a grant back in '21. And the grants are good for 30 months. So Chelsea's down there, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So they're number 15, actually 14 because Hancock's up top. Hancock has no Class 2 town highway, so they never get any grants. So maybe next year, they would be in line for one, but you should always apply because who knows how many of these towns up top are gonna apply. You know, I know some said they are going to, some have already sent the applications in. But you know, Not all of them will apply, and some towns will decline grants once they've been awarded. You know, they've decided that we can't really commit to using this money in 30 months, and we want to give it back so that somebody else can use it. So that's kind of how the grants are distributed. And like you said, we always encourage the towns to apply, because, you know, it's hard to say exactly who's in front of you is going to apply for one. But also we enter all the grants into our tracking system so we can show need. And I have seen in years past, we've gotten increase for certain reasons. They've increased the funding levels. There'll be some money left over, several $1 million. They'll throw it into this to, you know, break it up by the 9 districts, and we'll get a piece. So that's, you know, we'll go rate who is next. Do you guys want a grant? You know, we'll apply. So that is kind of it for class 2. Any questions on that?
I do have a question.
Yeah?
So when you talked about the financial plan, and maybe that the financial plan applies to all the funding. Submitting a financial plan each year, an annual financial plan, does that apply? That applies to all the grants, programs?
It can. I mean, you can show it in there.
It's all the transportation grants.
Oh, okay, thank you.
What's that?
It's all the transportation grants.
Yes.
So it's not like they get a grant for, you know, the town hall. I don't think
Right.
that's going to impact.
No,
where-
yes, yeah, thank
Right.
you. When is that annual plan need to be submitted?
That needs to be submitted, given to the district within 60 days of the town's budget being approved. So we got some time on that.
I think we have an email with like 4 or 5 attachments.
That's,
We're working on it, I think Casey's. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can try to get that done tomorrow, actually.
Yeah,
And I can
yeah.
help with it.
We've got 60 days, so yeah, cool. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so if we look at the town highway structures grants, okay? This one, the last one Chelsea got was in 2017. You know, this one's kind of difficult to do truly equitably. It's tough, because how do you compare one town against the other? So we'll do the best we can. We'll also look at projects, you know. One 5-foot culvert across the road might be more critical in a town that has farms and milk trucks going down the road and there's no other way in, where another town might have a bridge and you go down 2 blocks and you got another bridge to get across. So you don't always say a bridge outweighs a culvert, but some projects may take precedence over others. You know, it's a little subjective, but we do the best we can to work with it and try to do a equitable distribution. And then we will look at how much, you know, what percentage of funding the town has received over years too, to make sure we spread it out.
Can I ask, I don't know if I should wait or,
No, go ahead.
okay. So you mentioned a 5-foot culvert, so that's considered a large culvert then? You mentioned small culverts on the class 2 road.
So the,
What?
Go ahead, Chris.
this is what we do at work. The, like I said, all this is covered in statute. If you read the statute, it will not say that the structures grants cover culverts 3 foot greater than 36 inch in diameter. It doesn't say that. But the agency years ago looked at the 2 programs, and really this money was intended to be used for structures. So we'll say the larger culverts. VTrans, once you get to 6 foot, that's when we call it a bridge. But, the idea here was to make sure that the money, this money here isn't being used to change out a whole bunch of, 18-inch or 2-foot culverts on the road. It's really, we're trying to help the towns out with their larger culverts and their bridges. Okay, so that's the intent there. So it can, it can be used for culverts over 36 inches in diameter. It can be used for any number of things on a actual bridge that's inspected by the agency. The agency inspects bridges that are greater than 20 foot in clear span. So that's what we call a long structure. So you have those bridges, the town will have some of those bridges, then they have another set that isn't inspected by the agency that's somewhere between a culvert and, 20 foot in span. It can be used for any of those things. It can be used for retaining walls too. I've seen it, people ask to use it for slope stabilization. It's, we don't want to get into too gray because really the money's set aside for a specific purpose. But the neat thing about it though is we can, along with the roadway, but it's more often done with the structures, is we can do a grant to engineer a project. So oftentimes the town will have to replace a 4-foot culvert, okay? I can tell you, anytime you have a 4-foot culvert, it's probably undersized. So the state will provide sizing of what the new culvert's gotta be hydraulically, so it can go through, a decent storm event. And they do that at no charge. And so now you have a sizing, and you can, if you can apply for an engineering grant and say that thing now is gotta be a concrete box that's 10 foot wide and 6 feet tall. That's a structure that is not really suited to just having a contractor bid on. It's usually, you would want some sort of engineered plan. And we can do a grant for that, and we've done a lot of those, so we can kind of look at the projects and say this is probably gonna cost around $15,000 to $22,000 to engineer this, okay? So on the structures grants, the matching funds is 10%. By statute, it's 80% unless the towns have a network inventory, and the towns do have a culvert inventory and a road erosion inventory, right? Yes. So we accept that as a network inventory, and that changes the matching funds to a 90-10 split. Okay. On the class 2, without the inventory, it's a 70-30, but with it, it's a 80-20 split. Both programs max out at $200,000. So the most you will get for a project is $200,000. Now, if we gave you an engineering grant this year and that was $25,000, you got the job designed, and then a year later you applied and you got the construction one, we don't add them together. They're completely different phases. But something to think about is it is a maximum limiting amount of $200,000 or 90% of actual project costs, which is ever lower. So to get that $200,000, the project would have to have cost 200,000 divided by 0.9, whatever that comes out to be. It's 220 or 240 or something. So that's how the matching funds work. they're very good programs. The towns are expected to get their own permitting. There's not a whole lot, mainly for a structures grant, you'd have to touch base with the A&R stream alterations engineer. Most of their time is probably spent working with the towns on projects like these. They know exactly what they're doing. Rita and her staff have often assisted in filling in the applications. And we will help too, and in fact, will help estimate some of these things. You know, class 2, it's easy, sometimes you might have contractors come in and look at it, and they'll give you a ballpark. This is what we think this would cost. And that's good enough for estimate for the class 2. Sometimes it's harder to do that for some of these boxes, but we can look at other projects that are close in size and similar and give you dollars amount to put on there. And
So I noticed Chelsea is inching towards the top of the list under highway structures.
yeah, well, let's see.
I think they're like 4.
Yes, that's based on,
Oh, this one. you
that
said
would
this
be
one was
based
higher.
on a equal distribution of fund, well, no.
Yeah.
Yes, so, like you said, this one grant, it's hard to really look at it, we gotta look at the projects with it.
But this is one that we could have a project engineered 1 year.
Yes, yes.
And then move to something another year.
Yes.
Using that plan.
And you don't have to have everything engineered. Some bridge repairs, so you could go into the bridge inspection reports, which are, for the long structures, the town, they're all online, you can get them. And you can, sometimes you can ask for a special bridge inspection too, and we can arrange for that if there's some specific concern. But you can go in there, and sometimes you can take that, and you could have a couple contractors come up and look at it. And, or a reputable contractor, you could have them look at the inspection report, look at the bridge, and they can give you a ballpark. It's not really a bid, but they can tell you what would have to be done to make those repairs and fix that. Some towns, some of the bigger towns, everything they do, they want a PE stamp on the paper. Some towns, they have contractors that have built bridges and stuff. They'll get a couple of them to look at it, get an idea what it's gonna cost, and then put out advertise a project. And, let's see. I think I've covered everything with the structures. Any more questions with the structures grants? Like I said, it's a really good program. There's not a whole lot of hoops you gotta jump through to use it. For us to put in a culvert, and if we touch federal money, you wouldn't believe what we gotta go through, but we get through it. This is straightforward. There's usually 2 permits you gotta get, a stream alteration and a Corps engineer's permit. And stream alt will help you with it, and if you had to get a Corps permit, we can help you, and it's not that big a deal. Oh, the other thing too, is we have in our maintenance division, we have a bridge maintenance engineer, and his name's Sven Scribner. He came from a structure section. He's designed bridges before, and he'll come out and meet with myself and people from the town. We'll look at something, and he can throw some ideas at it. Okay, here's a bridge inspection report. This is probably the best way he thinks to attack this. And they do a lot of, our bridges, we got some rough ones, just like the towns do. And he's dealt with a lot of that, and he's got a good idea what costs might be too. So that's another way to come up with some of these estimated costs. And he will, you know, every once in a while, they'll do some engineering details for us. The other thing is we've done engineering details, we'll run them through our structure section, they say, yeah, it looks good, and then we'll give them to the town, and there's no cost. A historic covered bridge, a structures grant can be used for one of those, and we did that for the Moxley covered bridge, but it's a whole different ballgame. So both these grants will have to get through two clearances, historic preservation and archaeology, and that's not that big a hurdle to get through. But once you touch a historic covered bridge, the state will become very particular. The details that are used, how the work's done, who's doing the work. But on the other hand, they provided all the engineering for the Moxley Bridge at no cost to Chelsea, so. And that project came out. I'm probably running over time, aren't I?
No, thank you, thanks, Joe. This is good for the setup. What, are there other things that, I know I had one question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So 110 is gonna be paved sometime,
Yes.
I think next summer. And so have made contact with the project manager and want to invite them to town to walk it with Rick and a couple members of the select board. I'm assuming that maybe the district would be willing to walk it with them as well. I know Rick and I haven't had a chance to talk, but one day I was in Karen's office and she pointed out the drainage in front of the town hall here, and there's different places, and hoping to maybe see if we might be able to work with them to get a few things considered in that project. And there may be things that VTrans has for concerns through the village as well, so.
Yeah, and I mean, we did something different like that a little while ago in Rochester Village which is similar, you know, it was, we had some pretty poor stuff out there, and we got some funding to go ahead and fix some of the drainage in the village prior to that paving job coming through.
So if we're able to figure that out, facilitate them coming, I'd thought
Yeah.
we'd reach out to you and invite you to
That's
that meeting.
So, I'm gonna leave with you guys, I think we only got 2 copies. If you go online and you type in VTrans Orange Book for local, you just type in
V-Trans Orange.
VTrans Orange Book into Google, and it'll come right up, and it's a document that covers just about everything that we do with the town. And it'll cover reclassification of town highways, taking over a town highway, it covers the grant programs, and it's a pretty good document. But chapter 5 covers the grant programs, and that's the class 2 and the roadway, and it kind of explains what I went through, but you guys can look through that. Another good website is if you go onto Google and you type in VTrans-Parency, that'll show you, that's where you would find your bridge inspection reports. And when you get in there, it'll say bridges, and I believe there's 2 ways you can get to it. There's either a map, and then you can zoom in on the map and find the bridge at the dock, but there's also a lookup table, so you type in Chelsea, whose bridge is state or town or both, and you pick one of those, and all those bridge inspection reports will come up. And then you could read through them, or print them out or save them. They'll be PDF. Most stuff now is paperless. I mean, I printed this stuff out, and I haven't touched paper in quite a while. And I like it. But VTrans-Parency, so it'll have that. It'll also show upcoming projects, which I don't know if that's within 24 months or something. They're not 3 years? Okay, so if the project's expected within 3 years, it'll show it, usually. It might not show all of them, but it usually does. So if you went in there, I mean, you would see there's a box culvert gonna be done on 113 out in Verchier. In this paving on 110 may be in there. I think it is, because I think I was looking at it the other day. But that's a good thing, because you can see projects that are around the area. You know, if you wanna, even if you say, well, geez, they're doing something in Tunbridge, what are they doing? You can go on there and find out, who's doing it, and it'll have contact information. Each one of those projects will have a little web page with the color fact sheet.
Any questions for Chris? Chris, anything else that you wanted to add, or?
I think I got it, so we can work with Casey and whoever else on the annual financial plan if needed. And then there is another sheet that, it's a codes and standards certification. The town does have adopted codes and standards, and they were from 2019, so I would encourage the select board to read through those and at least understand that you have them, and I can provide a copy, or Rita can probably provide a copy if you can't find them. But they were legally adopted, and hopefully we don't have to deal with FEMA, at least in the near future, but these storms happen. Every so many years we get a natural event. If there was a FEMA declaration and Chelsea did get damage, we're gonna come up here, Two Rivers gonna come up, we're gonna do some preliminary damage assessment. But whenever we talk to FEMA, we wanna let them know that we do have codes and standards and we do work according to them. So, I just tell this to a new select board. I've been in meetings with FEMA, it's like, codes and standards, who can afford to deal with that, FEMA does not want to hear that. Because that's one of the things they're looking at. Okay, the codes and standards require that this now be sized appropriately or built to standard, and they're gonna wanna see that you're maintaining it. And the other thing that's important too, is with the culvert inventories, okay? One of the things FEMA asks now is they wanna see some maintenance records on sections of highways. And one way to do it is you change out a culvert, show the change in the inventory, because that's always good. Or keep records of re-graveling roads, ditching and stuff. Over the years, we've had trouble finding something, and then somebody said, well, the road foreman talked about that in the select board meeting, and we go back through the minutes, and sure enough, now we got something we can hand to FEMA and show that, yes, work was done, that road was maintained over the years. The other thing to know is if there was a natural disaster, we probably know pretty early on if there's gonna be some sort of FEMA declaration for it, okay? So we're gonna come out and we're gonna do some damage assessment, and it's pretty well organized. If we know the storm's coming, Rita and her group are gonna be prepared to start calling these emergency liaisons with the towns. And once it hits, we got a pretty good idea, and then her and I are sharing information back and forth. So we already really got a good feeling with Windsor, Orange County is gonna make their threshold. The thing to remember is that East Randolph Road is a town highway, but it's what we call a federal aid secondary major collector. It is not covered by FEMA. It's covered by the Federal Highway Administration ER program, which covers state highways if they're damaged. And that's something I have to know right off the bat if there's any damage on that, because the federal highway is really decent to deal with, but if we miss certain steps in there, it's hard to recover sometimes. And if we miss a step on a state highway, we can dig ourselves out of that hole, but if a town misses something and loses out, loses on money, it's a much bigger deal, so we don't want that to happen. And we try to prioritize looking at those federal aid town routes quick, so that we can get them plugged in, because the process is different. So that's just a thing to remember. Unfortunately, you never see any money on that road, unless there's a disaster, but I have, a few years ago, I had talked to people in our upper management and said that, if additional money comes into the state, maybe we should, federal highway money comes in, maybe we should try to find ways to use it on some of these federal aid town routes, for like paving and stuff. The problem is there's a lot more hoops to jump through. But some of that might be a little, but I kind of put that plug in. Let's see where it goes. That's all I got.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Chris. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm sure that, and I know that you work with Rick and others, but I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yep.
For sure. So we appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks.
Rita and Peter.
Hey everyone. So, like Chris says, I am Rita Seto with the Regional Planning Commission. We're kind of another resource for towns. We work closely with the district, with VTrans. I do transportation planning at the Regional Planning Commission, and we work with 30 towns. So I've worked with Gail and Karen and Rick and Casey for a long time. So they kind of know what we do. To kind of give you a bit of background of what we do, the town pays municipal dues to us each year, and that comes with, some perks. And one of the perks from the transportation aspect is we have a contract with the Agency of Transportation that provides transportation planning assistance to the various towns. So it kind of, coincides with, the district in that respect. So some of the, just quick overview, some of the technical aspects that we do. We help the towns maintain or try to maintain a road network inventory. So these are the type of technical inventories that we do. We do traffic counts, sidewalk inventories, culvert inventories, road erosion inventories, which is fairly new. That feeds into the municipal general road permit compliance piece for water quality, road erosion, road surface condition. And aside from that, we do collaboration with the various public transit agencies in the region. We do a lot of transportation grant assistance. So Chris mentioned, the class 2 structures and the roadway grants. We're pretty familiar with that, so we will work closely with the road foreman and the towns if there are certain projects that you want to submit, and other grants that are available. We do a lot of coordination with the Agency of Transportation, but also Vermont Emergency Management. Chris mentioned, during a potential storm event, we have staff that will kind of reach out to towns just to check on you. How are roads doing? Do you need any resources from Vermont Emergency Management? And then we kind of coordinate with the other agencies just to see, it's really bad. Chelsea has multiple roads out. They're going to need some, significant resources and assistance. Or nope, they're pretty good. They don't need anything. So we kind of check on you guys for that. And then also coordinate with VTrans on various capital projects going on. Perhaps the upcoming 110 paving project, the two bridges, Bridge 9 and Bridge 11, that kind of happened a few years ago. Coordinate with public outreach on that. So that's just kind of a really brief overview of the different things that we do from the transportation aspect. And so I know many towns are very interested in grants. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did kind of pull together a very brief summary of all the transportation grants that are out there for various types of, whether it's, culverts, ditching, bike ped, infrastructure. And I feel the best thing would be to, if the town has a specific project or thought, to kind of check in with us. You're like, what do you think about this project? And we can kind of help, craft it or make it more competitive, or, tweak it this way to make it a better project. And then ultimately, I know the board is fairly new, but I thought it would be very useful to pull together kind of a grant summary page here, and to kind of show you the different grants, coordinating with Rick over the years, what types of grants the town has been, applying for, and, getting things done. So these are the type of grants that are kind of annual each year. They're fairly low-hanging fruit, and usually I work with the towns to kind of pull together the grant applications. And these are the kind of grants that we probably would recommend to the towns to, apply for each year if possible. So I kind of pulled it out to, previous grants, the current grants that you have, and then, potentially upcoming future grants that you should probably try to apply for in the next, 24 months or so. Other larger grants that might be federally funded, you probably want to consider, what the timing of that is, what your cash flow is, what's your staffing capacity to manage one of these really bigger ones where there's a lot of paperwork or requirements, hoops to jump through. So that's kind of like a very brief overview for transportation from the Regional Planning Commission. And I guess, Peter, I can chat with you on that, unless if there's specific transportation grant questions you guys want to kind of chat with.
Any questions for Rita before we? Just real quick, and I know, Rick, you probably know this, but when you talk about all the, do we have all the inventories?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just, are those GIS, on a GIS layer, or are those?
Yes, both GIS and Excel
Okay.
based. So we can send you inventories, and usually based on the inventories, we don't just inventory, but we also kind of look at the data, kind of sort them through what are like the really bad ones, and kind of filter it. So like, okay, here's your really poor or critical culverts, and then sort them by road, and usually be like, okay, Rick, here's the bad ones, like what are your thoughts on what to prioritize to get grants to kind of fix them for the next couple of years or so.
Sure.
Are those reassessed annually?
They're not. Usually we do like a really big one every few years. I mean, especially after Irene, like everybody just kind of got started from scratch. What we tried to do with towns now, the state actually has a really great website. There's a statewide town culvert inventory, VTculverts.org. You can look at any town culvert in the state. We've uploaded whatever latest version of the town inventory in there. And actually in the last year, they've created a really easy mobile app to kind of update. So Rick could be, if they changed a culvert this year, they can go out into the field and just change it right there. And that could help with the documentation showing that you've maintained the records, when FEMA comes to town. So it's pretty nice. So, and usually, if Rick needs a map, we usually kind of go into the portal, we kind of pull that information down. We can, print out a really big map if he needs it and kind of reference it, or if for other grant applications, so we can kind of pull the different grant information out.
Rick, I meant to ask you when Chris was still here, do you have questions or thoughts that you want to add on any of these programs or stuff that we as a board should know about?
He knows what they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we have and we won't go, we've got a lot to go through tonight, but we have a grants and aid for 2022. Is that, that's under the green there, Rita?
Yes.
Have you identified where we're using that, Rick, or?
No,
Okay.
we'll hope after mud season.
Okay,
we'll go out
gotcha.
And get it done, so
Okay.
we'll make
Gotcha.
sure it gets done.
Just curious.
Yep.
And we may be calling upon you on our sidewalk
Yep.
grant. I know Casey has, but we're trying to figure out exactly where the location is and those good things. So,
Okay, yep,
just looking for some of the history and so forth on it,
Yeah.
just because we're all new.
yep, understood. Peter?
Well, I'm Peter Gregory, Director of Two Rivers. Thanks for letting me tag along. I just want to reiterate what Rita said. She's got a handle on all of the VTrans programs and works directly with everybody in our towns. And I have to say, she's probably pulled in more funding for our 30 towns than many of the other areas in the state. We've gotten our share for our town, so I'm pretty proud of the work that you do, and we're all fortunate to have her here. So I just want to say briefly about Two Rivers. We've got about a dozen staff, and we have some transportation expertise. We have expertise on flood hazard regulations and flood plain management, brownfields assessment money that we do in our communities. We do a lot of grant administration for towns. We help write grants, towns that either don't have staff or even towns that do have a lot of staff that don't have the time to administer. We do that as well. Municipal planning grants, those are grants available to underwrite the cost of town plan updates. As you may know, your town plan is in effect, but it will be expiring soon. They're only good for 8 years, and 8 years has gone by pretty quickly in Chelsea. It's a little faster.
And it's sometime this fall.
Yeah, November, I've got a copy of it, November 16th, actually. And on that, I don't mean to digress too much on that, but on the town plan, we've got some of our own resources that we could bring to bear and help the planning commission, if the town wants, to quickly review it, find out the gaps and stuff. There's some law changes that have happened in the last 8 years related to flood stuff and forest blocks and habitat connectors. So there's some new areas that the town plan needs to address. And I'd like to reach out to the planning commission and just offer to come up and chat with them and kind of go over our offer, and if you think that's a good
Yeah,
thing to do.
we need to reach out to the planning commission too, so maybe.
I'll let
we
you
can-
do that
Well,
first.
maybe we can do that together.
That's fine.
It
That's
might be
fine.
something that we need to do. I know that our previous chair has
Moved out of town.
moved out of town.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things that we as a board haven't really tackled, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that we need an updated town plan this fall, I think that's something that we need to maybe start taking on as one of many priorities that we have,
Right,
but.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, is we can help make it happen
Sure.
relatively painlessly and cost-free to the town, just so that you guys don't miss an opportunity to have your plan redone and approved by the Regional Planning Commission and all that.
Are there possibilities for extensions?
No, they cease to exist. But again, if you have a planning commission and you need to appoint couple new members or get them organized and appointing a chair, I'm not even quite sure what the status is. That's on you, but we're ready to come up with you, after you, and kind of give them kind of a cheat sheet of the areas they need to look at. And we can even, bring language to them and have them chew on it and have a public meeting or two, facilitate that on particular topics. And we can make that schedule. It's tight, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably look at one of our soon upcoming agendas and try to get our planning commission to that, just to kind of re-engage kind of thing, and I'm assuming shortly thereafter, it might be nice to get you folks back and kind of, you talked about doing a gap analysis, I mean, is that something that we can get started on now kind of thing, or do you want to wait until we, I just, knowing that it might take us some time to get all of our ducks aligned, and if others have, it might be nice just to start getting some information, be like, oh, okay, here's a little bit of a roadmap for us.
yeah, I can do that. I'll talk with my staff when I get back to the office in the next couple of days and get that rolling. In the meantime, if you as a board have some ideas on the issues that are kind of ripe to be discussed among the townspeople and to integrate into the town plan, be thinking about that and start drawing a little list, just informal list of things that'll help us.
That just, a thought is, that with town plans, I mean, obviously they get warned, and, that type of thing, and there's a vote, but when you kick off a town plan, like, is there like a public hearing, you know, is it customary to have a public hearing where we say, hey, we're gonna rewrite our town plan, and we talk about some of the broad topics to draw out some of those pieces that you just talked about?
Not a formal public hearing, that's at the adoption stage at the planning commission
Sure.
and the select board, and it's not a town vote to adopt it, it's all of you.
Right.
It depends, you know, if towns have a lot of time to update their plan, a lot of times they will kick off that way, or they'll do a survey of residents, but that takes a lot of time, and I don't believe you have that kind of time. Not that we can't do something, a discussion midway through or something, and just say, these are the areas we're working on, and just have kind of a, you know, prior to a public hearing where it's near the end, we can have something in the middle, but,
Okay.
I mean, I think for us to be able to respond, we'll have to move it along quickly, you know, but, you know, with your full support of what's in it, you know, certainly,
Understood.
yeah. So we work, you know, with a lot, most federal agencies, I mean, you know, FEMA was mentioned, USDA, which is rural development, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has community development block grants, so community facilities, economic development projects, those two that we can help write applications and have done that and can work with your staff and stuff on that. I don't know what else, is there anything, you know, I think we talked about what? Did you say the hazard mitigation?
No, the pump station.
Oh, the pump station, yeah,
Right.
the earmark or so-called the federal grant you got. You know, at some point, we, you know, want to talk about that. I think we've been sending a little bit of information the last day or two.
Yeah, I apologize to everybody, Rita sent me something, I think today, and I didn't get a chance to forward it out, but I know we've talked about it. It was 4:30?
Yeah, why didn't you send?
Yeah, I missed my meeting prep, but I know Casey, Patty, the board, we've got to kind of rally around, okay, what are the next steps? Because we have to apply, you know, and
Probably your top priority right now.
yeah, it is one of our, yeah, absolutely. So we want to make sure we don't lose out on that. We understand there's a match associated with it, and we just want to make sure, there's a lot of, we have a lot of things that we may be able to do down at our wastewater facility, and this is just one of them, so we want to make sure we don't miss this opportunity.
Yeah, and we're certainly available to help the town get its ducks in a row to get that application in.
So that might be the type of thing where if a couple of folks that are working on it and a select board member or two, maybe we could even have a meeting,
Yep.
you know, where with whoever you identify as your staff person, that we could just sit down and be like, okay, what's next? And, you know, to the other board members, I'm talking a lot, but if you have other things you want to interject, please do.
I'm slightly panicking over the November 19th date and envisioning a town plan, so.
Yeah,
Let me help you relax, because if you're willing, we will help you get there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we do them all the time, sometimes on a very rushed basis and stuff, and the town plan, you know, might have a life of 8 years, but that doesn't mean you can't revisit it in a couple of years if you leave something out or something, circumstances
It's not gonna be
change.
a perfect,
No,
you
yeah.
know.
And I know that we're required for 8 years, but can you just give us a little bit of like, why do we have a town plan? You know, just to make sure that we're all understanding.
Yeah, town planning in Vermont is optional, but all towns in our region do town plans. And what they are really is a statement of the values of the community and how they want the community to develop. They usually have some demographic information, but we're trying to help towns make them more policy documents, like by issue area, these are the policies that we want to pursue as far as our investments in our utilities and facilities, our infrastructure. On land use, locations, they are the town plans, the underpinning for local zoning and other bylaws, flood hazard regulations, which you do have and are in good shape. They were adopted in 2017, I believe I looked. So a lot of state grant programs look at town plans and make sure that the town plans mention projects in them that the town is seeking a grant for, so that they're not just throwing grant applications around, that there's some thought and some priorities identified by the community. So it's good to be forward-thinking, obviously, that's what a town plan is, but by issue area, say this is what we're looking to invest in our utilities and facilities over the next 5 to 8 years, and that'll be then your basis for going after other grants.
And usually a lot of the grant applications, they'll be like, you know, where is this supported in your town plan, and ask for a reference and like, you know, what page, and to kind of document, you know, why is the town applying for this? Like, what is it supporting? So, yep, in our town plan and this chapter, the people want to, you know, increase pedestrian safety and et cetera, then it kind of helps support your case for that project. Yeah.
Hazard mitigation plan, that's one other plan. I didn't have a chance to check on the life of that. That's a FEMA-approved plan. I believe you have one. I'm not sure. It's got a 5-year life. Normally, the state applies for some federal money to help towns underwrite the cost of developing those. They're related quite a bit, I think, in many cases to the flood and inventory work that Rita does. You know, she identifies some bad problems, they're put in your hazard mitigation plan, and then sometimes there's a FEMA grant that can fix it. But we do tie all these plans together, so they're not just individual documents sitting on shelves. They're meaningful, they really are, and we make sure that they are. So
We also want to make sure towns do have a FEMA adopted or approved local hazard mitigation plan. When there is a FEMA disaster, that's one of the factors as part of, you know, perhaps your reduced match for FEMA projects. If you have, you know, flood bylaws, you've got approved plan, your match for FEMA projects can be reduced, and that can be significant. So.
So I will talk to my staff about gearing up to help on the town plan. I'll wait for you all to get back to me about when we can come up and talk with the planning commission.
Yeah. And we're not saying you can't talk with them, we just.
No.
We know that we need to as well.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. I'll wait for your initiation of the Welch appropriation.
Sure.
And then come up, you know, daytime or whenever works, you know.
Yeah, I think we need to, we'll
Yeah.
figure that out
Yep.
relatively soon as well.
Okay.
We all just need to quit our day jobs for a few months, and I think we got this figured out. I did notice that, and actually I just sent to the board the link to the Council on Rural Development. Peter actually has a copy, a hard copy. I couldn't find our hard copy, but I just sent the link to the board, so.
My name's in it, my mom wanted to see that, so.
Yeah. No, but that is something that, if and when it's been loosely talked about, but maybe seeing if the council would come back and do a community visit, and I'm assuming that's something that we could engage you folks in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it looked like 3 of us from Two Rivers participated in that March through May 2005 effort.
Right.
But yeah, and that doesn't have to happen before the town plan is redone and readopted. We want to get that plan done, but it will help inform your activities as well as the town plan the next time. So it's a good thing if we can get them to do it again.
Excellent. I'm sure there's a million things.
I just wanted to say thank you to Rita, because every time I've called, she's patient, she's resourceful, and she's just really a big help.
Yeah, we don't know what we do without.
I know.
Her husband feels the same way. Different reasons.
VTrans feels the same way.
Oh, I know they do, yeah. They do.
Rita, my husband feels the same way.
Well, thank you very much for having us out.
Well, thanks for coming. I know there's probably
Our
a
pleasure.
million other things, but.
Questions, you know, they all know where to reach me, and
Sure.
we're available, so.
Are there topics, just to make sure, well, you know, not to prolong this, they want to go home, but any topics as a board that we can think of while they're here, and if not, we'll just invite them back every other meeting.
Yeah.
No, thank you. We really look forward to working with you. We're kind of excited for you, and you got some good staff here and stuff, and so I think we're going to run with you.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. I
Yeah.
think some
That's good.
things a little faster than others, but obviously we've got folks that have been around and know what's going on,
Right.
so that's super helpful. So
Yeah. Good. All right,
thanks
thank
for
you.
coming
Thank
tonight.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being patient with us. We appreciate you doing that.
Our turn.
It is, and I guess I'll just say, I think that we as a board are familiar with the topic. It came to us before in terms of a permit. We know where well, Jesse may not. We should probably get Jesse up to speed. So maybe a little bit of background. And so we didn't know where you wanted to take it from here, but wanted to make sure you had a chance to get before us to talk about it, so.
Well, my name is John Rice, and that's my wife Rella. We moved to Chelsea in the early fall of 2008. I had the large Sprague farm at the end of Brook Road that I manicured for 14 years. And because of some illness that came upon me, regretfully I had to sell it. But I had an opportunity to buy this property, which I had purchased, the Thorn farm. And I expect to spend the rest of my days here on the Thorn farm. The problem we have, and it should be a fairly simple thing for all of us to put their heads together, is it's a Class 4 road. It has not had 5 minutes worth of work done to it, or $5 worth of work done to it in 60 years. The town, except for the other day, Rick came up and saw it with his eyes. The only time the town ever addressed that road was in the winter of 91, 92. The owners got snowed in, so they sent up a grader, and that's the only time it's been on this road. So the road needs a tremendous amount of work. Gary Thrasher, I'm sure you know of him, he came up and inspected with us, and he's estimating $90,000 worth of repairs to make the road so you can drive up it any time of the year. You can get a fuel truck up the road. You can get an ambulance up the road. Right now, if you went up there tomorrow at noon with any four-wheel drive truck here, you wouldn't get up the road to my house that sits on top. So my request, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but I know the town doesn't want to dump a bunch of money into it. There's no question there, and I'm not asking them to. I'm asking Rick, I'm asking the town, how can we solve the problem? I want to get to the house I just bought. I have the ability to turn that into a Class 2 road with my own hands. On Brook Road, I don't know if you watched me for 14 years, but I had a mile of road frontage, actually 2 miles. I had both sides of the road. I not only ditched it continuously, I weed whacked the whole thing 3 times a year. I graded it, I removed any debris, I cleaned out culverts. I didn't expect anything in return, and Rick can verify what I did because he watched me. So I have the ability to make that road spectacular. But if I don't own it, it's kind of, I'm fighting that. I'm putting $80,000 or $90,000 into something I don't own. So in a perfect world, seeing this is probably the only grade 4 road in this community, and I might be wrong, but I don't think so, that goes to a single dwelling as a dead end. Most grade 4 roads were meant for one reason, to be used in the summer as a shortcut for farmers. I've been up and down Beacon Hill 100 times, and that's exactly what it was. It was a shortcut. And I can't tell you how many are like mine, but I can't imagine there's any others. It doesn't make sense why it was ever put in there, just to service that one house as a dead end. So I don't know how to solve it. You people are in charge. You own the road. In the perfect world, to get out from underneath it, you could discontinue it. And that would put it solely in my hands. There's no monetary gain there, not a nickel's worth on my part. It's just that I'd have the ability to do what's necessary to make the road passable. There is one culvert pre-existing there that the town does have the responsibility to deal with, and it's a 4-foot culvert. It's questionable on this condition. That's down at the very bottom of the road, and that's a $20,000 ticket to replace it. So that liability is sitting on the town as is. If I can get a truck up there and they cave it in, then that's an issue for the town, as I understand it. They own and maintain the culverts that are in existence. And Gary Thrasher, maybe I already said it once, but he figures the road needs 11 new culverts to get the water from going down the middle of the road, which is legally, it can't even really happen, but nobody's ever enforced it. The water, or the town's responsibility is to get it off of the roads, even on a Class 4 road. I have been told this, and I don't know if it's true or not. But I'm not here to argue. I'm here to ask you people, how can I make so I can get to my house anytime I want to, at my expense? And that's what I'm asking. So, and I'd like to hear what Rick Ackerman has to say about it. If he,
Yeah, if Rick has been up there, I thought it'd be worth hearing Rick's thoughts on the road.
Basically, like you said, this time of year, you can't really get up there unless you got a four-wheel drive. That's all you can do to get up there. I didn't look at any of the culverts. I don't know what kind of shape they're in. I mean, up to the select board whether they want to throw it up or not. I mean, like you said, we've never done anything to it in the time I've worked for the town.
About how long was the Class 4 portion of it?
0.65.
way before anybody here or our grandparents.
Yeah. No, I was just how long it's 0.65 miles. Yeah, so I was just thinking the length of it, so.
At the very least, I'd like to leave here tonight with some kind of authority to repair it so we can get up and down at my expense.
Right.
And I need your permission to do that.
Sure.
Now that I bought the house, I brought 2 trucks here to move some stuff and we can't get up the hill. And that's where, instead of giving you a bunch of paper that you can look at and get totally bored with, if you take a 5-minute ride here, I invite every one of you to take your 4-wheel drive vehicle and try to get up the road tomorrow afternoon, by noon. You're not gonna get up the road. And it's 0.6 of a mile long. So,
Yeah.
I'm not here crying about it, I'm here to,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think, for us, and you heard it, we're all new. So,
You're all human beings, now
Yeah.
live on top of the hill.
right, so,
What would you expect? You
right,
just,
exactly.
I
So,
love the community, I came back here after spending 14 years and I had to leave,
right,
and I came back and I was lucky enough to find another place. I just want to live there in harmony with the town.
sure. So, I mean, we actually, one of our previous meetings, got the copy of our Class 4 road policy. I'm assuming maybe they sent that to you as well, the Class 4 road policy.
I think John got it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I have.
So, so just reiterating for all of us that our policy says that the Class 4 roads, not including trails, will be maintained during June, July, August, September, and October as to be passable for 4-wheel drives only. Town maintenance will include bridges, culverts, and maintenance necessary to make the road passable during the months mentioned above for 4-wheel vehicles. And I'm just reiterating that so that we're all on the same page.
I've read the same thing.
Yeah, so,
And if we start talking about culverts, I mean, the only reason the water's going down the middle of the road is because there are no culverts.
right.
And I'm not asking you to spend the town's money, I'm asking you to let me do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I just want to be able to get an ambulance up there and a
Sure.
full truck.
sure.
And I don't want to have to, well, Jesus, the ambulance, I'll call you in 3 months.
Understood, yeah. Are you living, just out of curiosity, are you living there now?
Well, we're working our way into
Okay,
it.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe once this lovely thing called mud season goes away.
When I leave that property, or what, in a year from now, it's gonna be a crown jewel of the town, just like my other property was. I'm gonna make it flawless.
Sure.
There's gonna be animals all over it, and I just
Sure.
wanna fix it up and live there.
So I mean, I think there's kind of 2 phases to this, right? One is well, there may be more than that, but one is giving you permission to do what you need to do to be able to get to the property now.
And I'll interrupt you just for 1 second.
Sure.
You did it already once so far this year. You gave me permission to plow it. That's how simple it was.
Agreed. Agreed.
Now I'm asking for the next step, so I
Right.
can get up and down there.
Yep. So I think the first phase is allowing you permission to work on the road to get up there tomorrow if you wanted to be, if the board.
He's the person that can oversee any improvements, and he knows me well enough.
Right.
That it's gonna be perfect.
Right, understood. And then the second is just we, the snow melts, looking at what the town would need to do. You know, if there's anything left that the town would need to do to make sure that we're meeting the responsibilities associated with this policy as well. So,
The last thing I would want to do is bring a lawyer here.
no, and I'm not suggesting that at all.
No, I know that, but
Yeah.
I know how the world works.
We
That ain't me.
we don't want that either. Well, I'll speak for
Nobody
myself.
wins.
so-
I'm here as a
Yeah.
part of the community.
Yeah,
I'm not your typical flatlander. I love the little community. I don't want to change anything. And I could write a book on that because I come from Cape Cod. I don't want to change nothing. I like it just the way it is. All I want to do is get to the house I just bought. That's all. And you have the power to do it. The simple power to.
understood. Thoughts, questions?
I mean, have you been given the paperwork you need to fill out for the permits to do the work on it? Have you guys done that step?
I don't believe
to
there's
do more
anything
work?
for me to fill out.
Isn't
But I
there a
will fill
permit?
something out. On the snow plowing.
Right, but there is a permit for you to actually do more work. We gave you a temporary permit for plowing, but there is a permit you have to fill out.
I'm not aware of that, so whatever there is,
We
I'm.
can get you that.
Can get it emailed to you, and you have to fill that out, and then we can discuss as a board and give you permission to
And
do
then-
the work. But as far as us throwing up the road, that's a much larger process.
Well,
And
I
that's
know,
gonna
that's
have
a
to be-
major process.
yeah.
So to get rid of the road, to dissolve it, only thing I would offer the town is I would offer to pay all legal expenses, because it's gonna take legal work to do it. I would pay it all, where it doesn't cost the town 5 cents. And that doesn't enhance the value of my property. It would simplify it for everybody if you didn't own the road anymore. And if you think you have to own the road, then I can live with that. I just want to be able to maintain it so I can get up and down it. Now, I've been in the hospital 25 times.
I mean, I think we're happy to have you get the permit, fill it out, and
I need an
then
ambulance,
start.
I need an ambulance.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to
Right.
spit out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And so would everybody,
right.
if you're up there.
So I think there is a permit for you to fill out, and we'll make sure that you get that kind of ASAP. I mean, I think it's, in fairness, they're here tonight to give them a sense of kind of where the board is. Obviously, there's a piece of paperwork that needs to be filled out, but, I'll speak for myself in that as long as Rick is in the loop, you doing work so that you can access your property on the Class 4 road, you've got a permit, and I'll defer to the other board members, I think that's reasonable.
If there's any questions, take a ride up there.
Right, no.
Oh, what an eye opener it'll be. The only people that love
I've
the
deer
road-
hunted up there before.
People that love the road are the deer poachers.
Oh, I said that.
God
too. I
almighty.
deer hunted, I did deer poach, I promise.
If they're all deer poachers, I'm in trouble. They love
The
it,
timing of that was not good.
because the other owners, at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, they'd be driving through all the open fields, and that's gonna stop regardless.
Right.
Because I'm gonna fence it in, and there's gonna be cows there.
Right.
But those are the only ones in the community we're gonna piss off, for lack of other words.
Fair enough. Are there thoughts from other board members on just kind of this general concept of, obviously, there would need to be a permit that we would sign off at one of our upcoming meetings to give you, if we all agreed, to give you the authority to do that. And obviously make sure that Rick has had a chance to work with you and talk with you and about what the work that's being
He's the
done.
key to the whole thing.
Right, so, Rick, do you have any concerns with that approach? Okay,
I definitely think that's the next step.
so,
So we'll get you the permit, and then we'll get it signed at the next
Well,
meeting.
Karen has her email address.
right.
Yeah.
So, Karen, maybe we can Right, so we can make sure, and you'll get, maybe Patty can send something out
So we'll get that to
ASAP to you.
right
It's
away.
very, I think it's just a one page, isn't it just a
One or
one page? Okay,
And if you felt it was in the best interest of the community and you want to, dissolve the road or discontinue it, we'd be very interested in that.
okay,
That way I have control over who comes up the road.
right, understood.
Yep.
Yep. So, I mean, it sounds like there's kind of a general consensus here. Obviously, we gotta sign off and vote officially on the permit. But is it safe to say there's kind of general consensus that the idea of giving them permission to work on the road is reasonable? Okay,
That's all we ask.
excellent.
Step one.
Great.
Make it to step two, that'll be great. But
We'll get you the permit, you fill it out.
In speaking with Casey and Rick, we're looking at what was on our website, and that access permit is for utilities.
The working in the right of way,
The
it's a
working within
policy,
the right
it's
of
not
way.
a form.
The policy is for utilities, not just working in the right of
Well, it
way.
might take us a minute or two to work through that, so there's not a,
And the other one is just a curb cut. That's when you're putting a driveway in, and that's what we gave them the snow plowing on.
so we
that
don't?
confuses me, but I'm listening.
Yep, me too.
I thought there were two, but you're saying the second one we thought that was just.
The second one that you guys thought was an access to work within the right of way is, but it's for utilities, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But that's the 19 VSA.
19 VSA, chapter 11, section 1111.
Yeah, so
And
that,
that's what this,
That's power line work
but
within the
that's
town
power
right of way.
lines.
well, we may have a little bit of work to do to figure out exactly how we're gonna do this, to make sure that we get you, I mean, there needs to be a permit, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
I just wanted to make a suggestion to sort of simplify tonight's conversation. While we research what statute and whether or not there's a permit, could we put something in writing to them? Or maybe have them send us an email that says, we would like to be able to start, et cetera, on their road, and then we could send them a letter back in writing, so we at least have in writing that we have this agreement in place for them to, and then we can figure out if you need to sign something or.
Right,
Any repairs are not gonna happen
That's this.
tomorrow or next week.
Right,
Because it's
right.
now, it's mud.
yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I came down off the hill tonight, yep, you're right.
I wish you would take a ride up there, and then I'd have some more allies.
Yeah,
Right, but John, realize you bought the place knowing what that road was like.
Actually, it was sight
Yeah,
unseen.
but
so,
It's not like did you buy it sight unseen, not knowing what the
bought
road
it
Yes.
sight unseen.
really?
yeah, so,
I got 200 acres. I'm downsizing from my 300 acres. Couldn't been any happier.
so how about this? Because we do have a little bit of work,
Oh, never mind.
obviously, on our end to make sure we're,
No, that's application for, I found it.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that everyone has the road that's lit.
okay,
On what? What did you find?
I found the application for work within the town right of way, which is what happened.
yes,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm
So,
gonna make sure that Karen and Patty will have that, like now, I'm gonna do it now.
yeah, if you could send that to Karen and Patty,
That's what I had, but I was on a different page.
and also,
Good idea.
and also if you could just copy the board on that. So, it sounds like we have a permit. We will email it to you. As soon as we get that back from you at one of our next meetings over the course, probably the next couple of weeks, we'll take it up, make a formal decision and get back to you.
And one of the issues with the road, and I think it would be covered by the permit, because of the lack of nothing done to it in 60-some odd years, that it's growing in, and that has to be taken care of mainly with just drainage ditches.
Right.
They've all filled, which I have more than enough ability to do.
Okay,
It's no concern.
excellent.
As far as quality, that would be no concern whatsoever.
Yeah, and.
I have all my own equipment, and I have 55 years of knowledge in the construction trade, so.
So I think what we'll do is, we'll get you an email. You can get the permit to us, we'll make the permit, but then, maybe before you start construction, Rick and, someone from the board or something come up and just make sure that we're all on the same page before you get started on the work, and maybe we can lay that out just to make sure we're all good.
For the start, I would put in a couple really necessary culverts and a little bit of gravel. But it needs $60,000 worth of gravel to do the whole road. And I'm not gonna dump that on your road unless I'm forced to do it. I have no other alternative.
Understood.
No offense.
None taken.
I put enough there to get me up and down.
Excellent. Yep. Well, we'll get the permit in place. Once the weather clears, we'll make a plan. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I just realized Bill's here for the... Bill, are you here for the Easter egg? Are you here for the Easter egg?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Well, I think we approved that at our last meeting, did we not?
I don't have any idea. I haven't been communicated with.
For the Easter egg hunt?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
okay, well, I haven't seen anything, so, and I saw it on the agenda for tonight, so, our new creation fellowship, so.
I am so sorry.
I just had that realization, Bill.
Yes.
Well, it's not a problem. I learned a lot tonight.
I just had this, as I'm ticking things off the list, I'm like, well, Bill's here. And then I saw,
I walked by the post office this morning posting school board stuff, and so I saw it, and I saw New Creation Fellowship. I thought, well, Jan's gone, I might as well show up and see if there's anything I need to answer.
we owe you an apology because we approved that at our last meeting.
Okay, but not a problem. So we'll have the egg hunt on either snow or mud or grass or whatever happens between now and then, so.
Well, and I hope a lot of people turn out for it, so,
Yeah.
sorry, Bill, that
Normally it does. Last year was probably the smallest, but that was because it was raining. Or misting pretty heavy during it, but we still had 20 kids and parents out there, so.
excellent. That's great. Hopefully it's a nice sunny day and the grass is green.
We hope so. Anyway, not a problem. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Bill. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm not gonna get my computer out. I just gotta look at an email. I'm not texting. I'm looking at an email. Oh, geez. I feel bad about that. Okay, so next on the agenda, is the first class hotel license and outside consumption permit. So there's two. There's two individual permits. I think these got emailed to us, correct? So these are for the Hubble Shire Inn, I believe, which is the Shire Inn. And there's two. One is for, I'm just trying to make sure I have it here. One is for a first-class hotel license. Hold on. Let me make sure I got this right. Outside consumption permit is one, and the other is for a first-class hotel license. So these are liquor licenses for those two purposes at the Hubble Shire Inn, so.
Didn't we? I thought we okayed this last week, no?
That was for yours.
That was Freeburg's Farm.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And I think this got brought up, but we didn't have the paperwork to do it, Bill.
So we moved it to
Okay.
this week.
So, is there a motion?
I move to approve the two liquor licenses for Hubbleshire Inn.
I second.
I'm just gonna say Hubbleshire.
Oh, Hubbleshire.
Oh, Hubble Shire Farm, yes.
Oh,
thank
it is
you, Kelly.
farm. Inn farm.
That was I misspoke. Is there
It
any
says
discussion?
Hubbleshire Inn, sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll give those back to Patty. Thank you, Patty. Let's see, next on the agenda was grants, discussions and updates. I don't know if there's a lot, but Casey, if there's a few.
Yeah, let's see. The sidewalk grant, Rita, who was just here, helped me set that up, and I've already gotten my first email from a contractor that says they're interested and they needed more information, so while I was sitting over there, I sent them an email. So we're doing good there.
I'm just, if I may, just
Yep.
pause on that, just, I did speak for everybody, so I did speak with one of the adjoining property owners who just said, oh, we weren't aware of that. So I agreed that I was gonna go down, and they actually said, you're replacing the sidewalk in front of here, it isn't, you know, it doesn't, they were very nice about it, but said, it doesn't really look that bad to us. So I said, hey, once the snow's gone, and Rick, maybe you can give us some history on how that came about? Or the condition of the sidewalk there, concerns?
I mean, that's not the worst spot we have, but, just talked to Rita about grants and the sidewalk grant, and we just thought we would start raising some of them up, because they're easy, like, below the south of the firehouse there's always a puddle of water there.
Yeah.
They're so low. So we just thought that we could get a grant, start fixing some of them up,
Yeah.
raising them up.
Did you say it's not the worst spot we have?
No, we have up by Arnold Preston, there's a spot where the sidewalk is all deteriorated. We tried to shim it there 2 years ago, and the other day when a snow blowing, took that piece off. And like down on by Joey Spinella's, down there, it's really low, water's zero all the time too.
Is there a reason that that section of sidewalk was chosen instead of these other sections that seem to need more work?
We just figured we gotta start somewhere, you know, right there by Tim Courts, because we're doing both sides of the park. And it's really low right there. So we're gonna start right there. It's like through the village here, I mean, town hall, front of the park, it's pretty good shape.
Right. And the idea is it go almost, did you choose points as to where, like, it should go to here and go to there kind of thing based on the condition, or, I know it says about 300 feet of sidewalk, so I was just
Yeah,
curious.
we just went with 300 feet either side of the firehouse just as a starting point.
Kind of the thought was that would chew up the funding. Okay. And to your knowledge, nobody ever reached out to the adjoining property owners or anything like that? Okay. So that's something that we
No,
definitely
and I'm
need
in
to
the
do.
process of trying to draft a letter, but I didn't have any solid dates because I don't.
Sure.
I don't have a, right.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's just something we need to work through.
yeah. And like you all said, I had no idea how we got here. I mean, this folder was just kind of
Understood.
handed off to me at some point, so.
Yeah. Well, we got a little bit, and we did put in there for a pre-bid meeting, I think.
Yes.
You know, so
Yep.
obviously, Rick, I think it'd be important to make sure that you can be there and
When we applied for it, then we talked about maybe not doing it, you know, because it was so much money, and then the previous select board said we should do it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not second guessing, I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page and, you know, obviously we need to talk to the adjoining property owners and stuff like that. It's just a matter of, for me, I'm just asking because I'm trying to like, okay, what's the background, you know, so.
Right.
Could we possibly send a letter out just saying that it would happen this summer, and that when we get an exact
Yeah.
date, we'll update them?
Yeah.
Maybe just to get it moving.
For the past, with what the conversations have been over the past couple of days, yes, I just didn't get to that today because of the next thing, which was the, so that, I'm sorry, bear with me here, I got a terrible headache. The wastewater prioritization form that you and I did, like, the
Couple weeks ago.
28th of,
Sure.
it was the 28th of February. So the guy at the wastewater division there got back to me. It took us 2 days to figure out what the heck was wrong with that form so that we could actually properly submit it. He ended up having to recreate it and do it himself because no matter what I did, I could not get it to submit. So, but we are submitted. We did make the deadline, and that's fine, but that's why I never got to the letter, was because I was fighting with this silly form. So that's that update. I think that's pretty much what I'm working on. The next thing, Jenna, I meant to call her today. I cannot get this Jenna from Historical Preservation actually on the phone to talk to her about what the next step is with this building. But, you know, we've got the fire report. Did everybody get that? Yeah. So, you know, we know what needs to be done next. We just have to start implementing that. And I mean,
I don't know how others feel. I mean, I think we want to figure out what we might be able to do for a planning grant here, but I definitely, at least in my mind, it's a little bit lower on the list of all the things we need to tackle.
Right. So I didn't study it. I read it quickly. I was a little surprised that there wasn't anything in here about sprinkler systems or a hardwired, which are not, they're not required.
yeah.
So, but I kind of thought we would see that, and I know we conveyed that to the first guy we met with, that we want, but I'm not sure, you know what I mean? He just came in, did his routine inspection. But I really wonder, as I know that we're looking and we are attempting to prioritize, do we want to kind of keep in the back of our mind that, you know, maybe just a hardwired fire alarm system might be great to have, and have it automatically call,
Right.
because this is a building we want to protect.
Right.
And there's
You're
usually
absolutely right.
occupants not in it. So I just want to put, even though that was it was nice to see what's required for the banisters and stuff. We want to keep in mind.
Some of the things, like the lock on that door, and that door has to either be locked open or taken off of its hinges. And of course, then we came in here tonight and it was closed. I don't know who closed it, but there's little things like that we can just do.
Right.
So. Yeah, and I think, so, I think maybe that would be I don't know how you folks feel, but I think the fire alarm system is, you know, I know Bill, the night we were at the fire department after the fire department had been here, there was a lot of discussion about, whoa, this building really should have something like that, so.
Okay.
And I think right now, that's what I'm doing with grants, unless anybody has a question for me. So I'm gonna go, except I'm gonna just bring up over here on number 13, Google Workspace update. I sent.
So if you don't mind, Casey, just to close out on the grants discussion, it definitely seems like what we need to do is to come back to the, we'll call it the Senator Welch grant, whatever it is, for the pump station grant.
The pump station grant.
And I think maybe take Two Rivers up on their offer to meet with us sometime in the relatively near future.
What is our deadline?
I don't remember. Well, I believe the deadline for expenditure is like 2026.
Getting our
The application in.
intent, yeah.
That I don't.
Okay,
I've got the notes
So
on
the
home.
next thing we're supposed to do, I think it's here, no? Okay, I'm not sure where the email is. The next thing we're supposed to do is, and I'm glad you brought it up, because we need to know this. We're supposed to get on grants.gov, get the portal set up. Should I be doing that? Should Patty be doing that? And if Patty does that, should I have access to that, or should I?
So.
That's the next thing, and then the thing after that is on the 29th, I'm going to that webinar specifically about this, at 1 o'clock on the 29th. So then I'll have a better idea when our deadlines and stuff are, I think.
I'm wondering if I should look into the grants.gov. I'm expecting it to be something similar along the lines of the sam.gov.
It might be, yeah.
And so we've already signed Kevin away.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
So's Mike Whipple, I think, on signing things at the wastewater plant. He keeps emailing me.
So I'm wondering if we should look at that, because I think it's like setting up the business entity.
Right.
Which, and they're looking for select board members is what the CM.gov.
Oh, okay, great.
Well, yes, that's who. So I'm thinking that, and I did see it come through today. Here we go. So I will look into that, but what I'm wondering about is, what is our next deadline? Do we know?
We don't know.
I don't believe, I have some notes when I spoke with Rebecca Ellis at home, and I haven't pulled those together because there are a bunch of head scratchings, and I think I may have that. I will email that to everyone so we know. I guess maybe on that grant, what I'm thinking, and I'm gonna use, we agreed on liaisons. Yes, we did that at the last meeting. But, you know, I think is it you and me at the wastewater and water? So I guess maybe what I would suggest, and make sure everybody that's good with it, is that maybe you and I meet with Casey and Patty and get Two Rivers up here sometime in the next week or two, and just see if we can kind of go through that and kind of kick off, and then we can keep the rest of the board up to date on what's going on there. But we just basically need to get that application in, so.
Okay. And I'm willing to do that as soon as I,
Yeah.
because I'm not even sure where to find it at this point, but my guess is it's on the grants.gov.
I believe it is.
Right, and I'm willing to help with that, not a problem.
And there's a couple, I think I've mentioned it before, but there's a couple of names that Rebecca Ellis gave me in terms of people within A&R that would be able to help us with this type of grant application as well. So I think between Two Rivers and A&R, I think we should be all set. It's just making sure we don't miss any deadlines. Kelly, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions or concerns from anybody else on kind of going down that path?
No.
Awesome.
Should we talk about the ARPA grant? We haven't talked about that. And we do have that money, and there's a deadline for that, so
That's a good point.
we need to get that in the process and moving forward.
I think we have on our draft, the list of potential future agenda items. I think it's April 4th, maybe. I'd have to look, and I left my folder at home, of inviting, Andy Pomerantz and Chris Byrne.
Oh, yeah, you have that on your schedule, so.
And kind of re-kicking that off again. Does that? No, I'm glad you brought it up.
April 18th.
What's that?
April 18th.
April 18th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, April 4th, I think, is the meeting where we have, Otter Creek coming in to talk about the water and sewer, and then have, Mike and Nate Billings come in to talk, to see where they're at with their proposal.
We want to talk to Rick now about the highway, the grant for
Yeah.
Strand-Off Road.
Perfect.
Since it's
yeah.
a grant.
So in terms of grants, there are two pieces. One, obviously see where we're at with the grant on the East Randolph Road, and then wanted to run a thought by you on the Town Highway Bridge grant. So if you want to start with.
East Randolph Road, I'm waiting for Blacktop. Give me some prices.
Okay.
I already got prices from Pike. We thought maybe by the end of the week, we'd have some prices together.
So they're submitting something to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess once you do that, I'm assuming you'll let us know when you have it, and we'll have you come to a meeting and we'll talk through it. Is that how you've done it in the past?
Well, I mean, if Pike is cheaper, we can
Yeah.
usually just go with the cheaper one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can bring them to the meeting, not a big deal, but.
Might just be
I just
me.
wanna-
It might just be me, but I'm interested in seeing what they submit, you know.
Did we have to keep those on file?
Yeah, I'm assuming, we have to keep a record of the bids.
Well, they're just quotes, they're not bids. I mean, we didn't put it out to bid.
But they're giving you something in writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't officially put out to bid.
Right.
I think I might have been confused. I thought we were asking for bids, not quotes. That might have been me, though.
Well, I guess maybe there's a distinction in terminology, because we didn't officially advertise it for requests for bids. But the fact is, they're giving you bids, right? I mean, it, you know,
Well, 'cause they, I mean, we didn't put it in the paper that we're.
right.
2.5 miles at
But,
22 feet.
but they're giving you something that says, this is what we're bidding. I mean, they're essentially giving you a bid,
Okay.
right? I mean, it's gonna be a binding,
Yeah, it's gonna be
And in order
what they
to
say
submit
is
it,
what it is.
I'm sorry?
What they say is what it's supposed to be.
Right.
right. And in order to get the VTrans grant, you have to give them 2, or you have to give them 1 in a letter explaining why you don't have to.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so this, doing the two with.
And I think, just to our purchasing policy, we've said we've wanted bids from, you know, we wanna make sure we're requesting bids. And so, Karen's looking at me. Oh.
Wondering where you are on your purchasing policy.
Yeah.
Well, we have to, we didn't add that, but we need to come back.
Later. Done to add to the agenda. 'cause I sent
You
an
did.
email out and
You
asked,
did, and I
did.
forgot.
And then I was like, I should have done it at the beginning of the meeting.
I forgot but, well, the fact is, our existing purchasing policy covers what we're talking about for the East Randolph Road.
Yes.
The modifications we made are at the lower threshold, so, yeah, I guess if, when you. Right, so if you get those, when you get those, Rick, if you can send them to the board, and we'll get you on the agenda, the next agenda, so that we can go through, you know, make sure we're all good with it and stuff.
And if we went with Pike, when did they say they wanted to do it? It was fairly early in the year, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, in May.
By the end of May.
Oh, really?
So that's why we were sort of in a hurry
The
to
last
get it
2
done.
years, every time they wanted to do it was September, October, and I told them it was too late.
Thank you for telling them that. For real, I mean it.
Well, it's just,
Sometimes they tend to wanna,
yeah, I mean, we haven't done it before when it was snowing.
yeah, you don't get as good quality.
No.
No.
And we can't get the lines on up through that woods because it's all damp in the fall. And then I'm gonna work, well, Pike's supposed to give me a freight quote for Upper Village to submit another paving grant by the 15th.
Oh, really?
Wow,
Okay.
it's good to at least keep submitting them that way there. I mean, we probably won't get one for another 5-6 years.
Right. Well,
But it's good to get, stay on the list.
and so what portion of her village is that? Rick?
Up from 110 up through to the, where we dug it up before, up by
Okay.
Boardman's.
Yep. Yep. When was that one last done?
What's that?
When was that one last done?
Well, from the, we did the intersection when we did 110,
Yep.
and then from that intersection to Hillside Homes there was, it's been like 20 years since that's,
Well,
and then it was, we did from there, we shipped from there to where we ground it up, it's like 6 years ago. But I don't believe we'll ever have the money to repave the part we ground up anyway, so.
what's that, I'm sorry?
The part we ground up,
Yeah.
above Dennis Boardman's, probably will never have the money to repave that, so.
Is that working out better once it was ground up, or?
It holds up pretty good. I mean, once in a while, in the dry summer, it's a little dusty.
Right.
They tend to cut the Dennis and, take a couple
Right across the road.
dust. For the most part, it holds up pretty good, especially in the spring.
So I didn't know that I'm glad that we're getting something to think about doing the Upper Village, or any questions for Rick on either one of those paving grants? So the next was the bridge grant, Rick, and I know at one of the meetings we talked and just mentioned, well, maybe there's little things to do on a number of bridges, and you sounded kind of like, no, maybe not, maybe not. One of the things that, and I think I brought this up at our last meeting, yeah, it was Maple Avenue hasn't made the list to be a VTrans project. But that said, maybe that shouldn't stop us from doing the engineering to, you know, I think that there's water across that bridge, right? I think the sewer line now goes out back, but, there's, you know, there's the flooding issues, there's the water line, the bridge isn't in great shape. The idea of maybe using that to get the engineering done and identifying the permitting and everything, so that there's, I mean, well, I think we've all started to see it. I mean, like every day you get a new email of a different grant program out there kind of thing, and to kind of get it ready so that if a program did, you know, there was an opportunity that opened up, maybe do that. And so we had talked about it as a board just briefly and wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, eventually we're gonna have to do something with it.
Right, right. And this would just get us one step further. So is the board comfortable with kind of moving forward? And we've got till April 15th, so we'll have another board meeting before then. But with the idea of pursuing the Class 2 grant for Upper Village Road and the Town Highway grant for engineering for Maple Avenue Bridge? Does anybody oppose to it, that idea, or? Okay. So, Rick, you said you were working with Casey, or will be, yeah. So just, you know, keep Lena and I in the loop, and we'll work with you. Anything else on grants?
I don't think so.
Anything anybody else can think of on grants? Okay. The last one was, the next one I think is just really quick. Central Vermont Solid Waste Management District Board of Directors. Is that typically a select board member, or do we have somebody from the community that is on?
We haven't had anybody on the board for a long time, and it is just a regular appointment of a person to represent the board.
Okay.
If you want to take on an extra duty, yeah.
You want to make someone a victim.
Bet you busy grants.
I guess it's a matter of, do we want to kind of put feelers out there to see if anybody wants to be on the, we still haven't formalized how we're reaching out, but.
Put it under town clerk news.
What's that?
They don't charge town clerk news in the newspaper, so I can put it under town clerk news that we're looking for someone.
Thank you.
Yes.
And actually, that's one thing that we've got to do as well, now that we have Patty, and we've got to get better at actually reviewing the minutes, but maybe we can get on a cycle of reviewing the minutes and doing a summary that we submit to the Herald, so that our and that's one of those places where we could say, hey, and the board's looking for a volunteer, kind of thing. But in the meantime, thank you. Anything else on that one?
Did it go on the Facebook page too?
Yeah, there's proposed
With-
forum too.
Right.
I mean, I think it can be posted on the Facebook page and have comments turned off, just to,
That's
informational thing.
Thinking.
Right. I think that's a great idea. Did we do that advertising the highway position?
We did
No,
not.
put it on there, we didn't.
Okay.
We just
Well,
let them know.
I mean,
It's only running for 2 weeks, so I didn't know how we're doing on it.
so is there,
We missed
in terms of Front Porch Forum and or the Facebook page, does anybody have any issues just posting a quick blurb? If Patty drafts one up and she can just send it to us and say, hey, we're gonna put this on there and we're all good and we go with it?
Would we refer them to the liaison? Who would we refer if that person was
Oh,
interested?
yeah, yeah.
For which part are you talking about? Because we kind of got two things
Are
going.
we
I was
talking
talking about
wastewater or
I was
highway?
talking about the solid waste district.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good point. They can have them maybe have them contact Patty and or the liaison.
Yep,
Yep.
Okay,
and that would be Bill.
right. Good point, Kelly. The next is Google Workspace. Oh, sorry, Rick, yeah.
Talk about solid waste, talked to Snook the other day, and, we need to get on something about, for the bears up at the dump, for the compost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had trouble last year with bear, last few years with bear. And we need to make a cage or something to put the compost in.
Oh.
Because they make a mess
How long
every
does
week.
the
It's a mess.
compost sit there?
What's that?
How long does it sit there?
They come once a week or every 2 weeks?
I think every 2 weeks.
But
But even if it's there for a week, if he's
Even if
hungry.
they're-
that's
It's there for a night. They're there Saturday night.
they make, it's a mess.
It is.
Snook has to
Either
go clean
Snook
it
or
up.
I have to clean it up, and it's a mess. Last year, they bought a metal building, one of them cheap ones, and it never got put out, and so something has to be done.
I'll talk with Snook. Figure something out.
It's gonna be the season. Thanks for
Really
bringing that
strong
up.
fencer, and you wrap bacon around it,
Mm.
and they bite it, and they don't
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
That's
Is
actually
that-
Ben Killam, that's what he says to do if you're having a bear problem, really strong fence.
Yeah.
Put bacon
Beehives.
around it, and they bite it, and then they don't wanna come back.
Beehives thing. That's what, I got a little electric fence.
Yeah.
And you put.
Some peanut butter or some honey,
Well,
something
the older
to,
gentleman said, hey, just tie some raw bacon to it, leave it there.
Yeah.
The first thing they do is they go to it and they, anyway. Not saying that's the solution for the dump, but,
might help.
Try a fence,
yeah. Yeah.
and make sure he shuts it off on Saturday.
I'm sure you'll find out real quick if it's still going.
Next was Google Workspace update.
Okay, so Jess was having trouble with it. I talked to Thor. So thankfully now we've figured out all the glitches and we should have the registries switched over so that Thor can put up the new website, hopefully in the next day, maybe two. And at that point, then we can help Jess get the protected domain name so that we can set up Google Workspace. However, we might want to figure out what we're doing with the email first. And Thor talked a mile a minute and I understood about 60% of what he said. So we're gonna do website first, and then once we've got the website figured out, I think the transition to getting everybody on a .org should be fairly simple because, am I wrong? You guys actually have Outlook on your computers. You're not using web Outlook. You had
I
Outlook.
use Outlook on my computer.
Okay, so that's actually good news. It should actually make everything easier.
You talk to Derek?
Derek talked to Thor because they were both like, I understood all of the
Geek
words that they were saying, but I didn't understand what they were saying. So,
So just to,
yeah.
so we got a website piece, and I think just, you were looking at Google Workspace, if,
Yeah, I was looking to set up like a 14-day trial period and set up one account for everyone to play around with so we could all see if it's what we're looking for. But they require that we give almost like admin privileges to Google Workspace, and we couldn't find where that was.
Right.
Which is what the question
And
for
I'm
Thor
not
came from.
sure we want to give them admin level access.
I think it's like verifying that our domain exists, and then if we full send with it, we would like transfer everything, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Is
yeah, I
that?
mean,
I'm not sure how compatible that is with the website portion of it, is the trouble.
well, I think, so the key is, we wanna try it.
Yeah.
Right, there's a 14-day free trial,
See.
and if we can figure out how to allow that to happen for 14 days, we all play around with it. I mean, it's not like we're gonna do a ton in 14 days, but we kinda play around with it and see what we think of it, and looking at everybody here, and to make sure that it seems like a good thing, right? That's kind of the general idea.
Yeah, before we commit to something that we don't know how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the conversation Oh, now I've gotta go back. Patty, you were part of that conversation too.
I really wish I had been able to be on that call.
I'd have to go back to my notes, but bottom line is our website can still be our website.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of,
I think they're looking for it to be an authorized website, so someone's not just entering in like a fake
Right.
domain that doesn't
Right.
exist.
Right, like a bot, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so they're just confirming.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Thor's gotta get a hold of it before we can confirm that we have
Yeah.
it. So
Right.
that's where we're at.
so that's right, so that's the chain of events that has to happen.
Right.
Is we're switching our website over, and so the new website host has to
Right.
have the domain before we can give it out. Okay,
Before we can give it
cool.
out. So that's where we're at. And then we'll tackle email. But yeah, like one thing at a time.
Yep.
I don't know anything about Google Workspace. Is it like you would upload documents you want to share, or can anybody just go into anybody else's email? I don't really understand what we're sharing on there.
You still have your own email. There's what's called Google Drive, where you can be given access to this folder that's on the cloud in the internet, so that from your office you could add something to the drive, and say Billy's at home, wants to see it, he could look at the same document as you and make changes, comments that you can see in real time. So that kind of the idea was everything would be in one spot for people instead of documents just spread throughout their email.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's other benefits too, but I think that's part of like having a playground with the trial period.
Right. You have your email, I have my email, we have our own space within the Google Workspace we can work in, but then there's a shared component of it. So like I don't remember, maybe I said this to you, Gail, if I did, but like, you did the budget for us when we first came in, and we were emailing versions of the budget back and forth, like, it would be like, no, there it is, kind of thing. The other benefit, and Patty, you can help me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but the other benefit is, you know, we can use Google Meet if, you know, we still are heading down this path, hopefully getting to a virtual interactive meeting. You could use Google Meet. There would be storage there as well for our meeting files and everything like that, so that it could all, it's everything kind of all in one place, right? It's, if you know, Casey and Lena and I and Rick are working on a grant, right? Like, Rick can see the grant application, we're not chasing each other around, emailing different versions. And the other part of it is, I mean, I view a component of it being much like you have on your computer where you store all your files, right? And you go, oh yeah, 3 years ago I did this, and you go back. It's the type of thing we as a town would have Google Workspace, so that we're not like, I wonder whose computer that was on, you know, or which previous select board member, or, you know, that kind of thing. It's all right there. I mean, I even will go as far in my mind of saying those filing cabinets that are over there that have a lot of really, really good information, maybe we can go through that, and if some of that really good information in time, we could scan and get it so that that's also available. So.
One more question. The license for the email, is that gonna stay with Calkins, or do we get charged double?
I
or
can't
how
figure
does-
that out, because we're not gonna get charged any extra, because all of the emails that we would have on Thor's server are all part of the package deal. I'm not sure what we're paying for through Calkins, because if the Outlook is on your machine and we're just gonna redirect, we might not need Calkins anymore
Yeah, well, for the email.
for the email, right?
Yeah, I
So
think
I'm
that,
trying to figure out how that works, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think
Yeah.
that might be another Derek
Yeah,
talk
I
to
could
Thor
call
conversation.
Derek, so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think the email piece may be something that we've got to, because Google Workspace has a piece, there's a .org through Thor, we've got emails through,
And really, I mean, what you're talking about with like a grant, so if I write a short story on Google Docs, I can share it with anybody that's got the link. And so I have some beta readers, and they go on and they make comments and they highlight things, and so I think what you're talking about, though, is something where now, like, everything lives in the cloud. So, I mean, I don't know if, what am I trying to say here? I'm not sure if the monetary output is worth the service that that you're looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna get it set up in a trial.
Right,
We'll try it. I think there's a lot of features that, and we'll all try it and we'll kind of come to some kind of collective decision. I mean, there's a component of it, just the storage part of it is, you know, worthwhile, but I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. I think we've agreed we're gonna try it. And I don't wanna speak for anybody else. I think that's where we. Yeah. Anything else on that one? Kelly, I know you have to run. You had asked wastewater?
Yes. So I just turned my laptop off. Mike met with, I'm probably gonna have it, met with somebody last week, 2 weeks ago. They came and did the inspection.
Right.
And they gave some recommendations of things that we needed to do, and they're moving forth on doing those. But they also mentioned that in forward thinking about needing something specific, it has to do with setting up a different type of generator for the wastewater water supply system. Don't quite know what it is. It's probably both, quite frankly.
Oh, it's the SCADA system.
Is it the SCADA
Yeah.
system? And making it compatible with a different type of generator.
Right. I think that's the one at the Brookhaven well. Yep.
This is only a recommendation. I'm so sorry, I closed my laptop.
It's okay. I've lost, I saw the email and I've completely lost
So
track.
actually, you weren't on the emails.
Oh,
That's why I
wasn't?
think it's not the SCADA system.
Oh, okay.
It's something different, because I asked questions.
Oh.
Sorry. So it had to do with making something accessible for a different type of generator, which is not required by code and standard yet, but they're moving towards that. And basically, he asked if we want to have him get an estimate. I did not want him to go out and spend his time getting an estimate if we were not even the least bit interested. But also, so I guess I'm kind of looking for, do we want him to get estimates on, it would be updating a system. We'd actually be a little ahead of the curve of getting something in place that's coming down the road, is really what it is. And it has to do with connecting a generator to one of our systems.
Yeah, I do believe it's up here. I think Mike had mentioned it, that about adding a transfer switch so that if we do lose power there, we could bring a portable generator there and plug it in.
That was only a recommendation, that wasn't a requirement to fix. And so I just was like, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
think it's gonna hurt to get a price on it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that being some sort of huge number to have that put in.
Okay, when he asked for estimates, I was like, oh, are we, because I'm thinking a switch, $50, but.
Well, I mean, it's, I
Wishful
think
thinking.
probably
and I think another update on wastewater is Kelly and I are gonna be meeting with Mike and Nate and possibly Otter Creek on Friday morning, just to kind of be like, here we are. And maybe that's a conversation.
Okay.
I mean, if the rest of the board is comfortable with us
Yeah.
making a decision to say, go ahead and get an estimate once we learn a little bit more.
Okay.
Because I think
point.
there's a
Yeah.
piece of it, the SCADA system got hit by lightning twice, once we fixed it, the second time I don't think we have fixed it. And the SCADA system, as I understand it, is the alarm, or part of the alarm system that needs to be tied in. And I think the generator may be a part of the backup to that system. I'm looking at Rick, because Rick might even know, I don't know. So, do you, no, you don't, okay. I didn't know. You look this way, I'm like, okay. So maybe you and I can kind of like,
Okay, yeah.
does that make sense?
Yes.
As long as everybody else is comfortable, if we say, hey, Rick, go ahead, or Rick, Mike, go ahead and get an estimate.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do, or what we're gonna do on Fridays, just kind of find out, get an update from Mike and Nate where they are in terms of coming back to the board with a formal proposal for our meeting on April 4th.
Yep.
Oh, and Patty did send me, or just pass this to me, the use of the village request form, which is the one I think we intended to do tonight, so, is, no, because we already did that one as well. I think that there may have been a typo in what I sent.
That just came in today, right?
Yesterday, she filled it out.
Right. So why don't we pause, because I know Kelly has to leave. Kelly, is there anything?
Well, you have
else?
this too, Kelly, for,
Oh, that's
you
what
asked
you
to
handed
talk
me.
about it. There's the same, Emily that requested for the farmer's market had asked about food truck.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Do we want to put that on?
When does the farmer's market start? Is it April? When do we start?
It's,
Is it May?
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have time. It was really like, they're looking for clarification on our parking policy on the greens, whether they can drive onto the greens, and would we consider taking up 3 parking spots on North Common to allow a food truck to come and set up.
Is there an email on that? Is that,
There
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yep.
I can.
oh, sorry. I gotta do it better.
We got a lot of emails this week.
Her
So-
name's in there.
I know you gotta go. Do we want to just put this on our next agenda?
Yes, that would be
Because it's
great.
not a pressing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Thank
you know what, because, and again, I think, yeah, this is the Arts Festival for September so why don't we'll just put that on our next agenda, and that way there we can. Oh, so the other thing is, and we got a request on the Roberts Poor Fund, and we need to do that in executive session, but there's a letter that admittedly I printed out for us to consider, and so I'm gonna suggest we just put that on we're meeting next week, and we just put that on our agenda next week to do an executive session. I don't believe it is, no. It's not like the one we saw previously, no, so. And it's from someone representing someone, so I'll make sure to coordinate with them, and we'll deal with that. We can deal with that next week, knowing that we're kind of running out of time. Wastewater, the library appointment, I think what we can do is we can put that on our next week's agenda as well. And the only other thing I'll say is Kelly's walking out the door. We just need to do the warning for next week. There's a couple of these minor things, but I think basically we agreed that we were gonna dedicate that to employee salaries.
Yes.
And Gail, we were hoping that you might be able to join us. And again, we'll have the very first part, but it'll just be a few minutes. It'll be open meeting, and then we'll go into executive session.
And the rest of it will all be executive session,
Yes,
right?
yep,
Yes.
yep.
Okay.
It'll be a very limited agenda.
Okay.
Awesome. Bye, Kelly. Yeah, and then there's orders. I don't know if these have been passed around or not. Maybe they have.
They got here like,
Oh, okay.
Kelly and I saw them. Did you guys see them?
We haven't seen them yet.
Oh, they haven't made.
Started reading them.
I'm sorry. They've been sitting over here while I've been.
I got a little late.
No, it's fine, it's fine. But by the time I got home from work, I like breezed through and like did the highlights and then.
We're finding our stride with the bazillion emails. While we do this, is there anything else? Rick, is there anything from you? I mean, bud season's over, right?
Yeah.
We do need to put on an upcoming.
I assume I don't have to give permission to that.
Do what?
Well, if I over $2,000 I want to spend from the college, so I just.
Oh, well, I mean, I think, I guess I would say that's something we can take up later, but it's mud season and you need to put stone up to address mud season, so, you know. I mean, Does anybody have any issues with Rick going out and putting stone up that we get from McCullough's?
I hope not, sorry, it's better.
Feel free.
That's fair.
For an upcoming future agenda, I do wanna put on there the equipment, replacement plan,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that we can look at that. I do have a list that Rick gave me.
Oh, okay,
And so
cool.
that we can
Well,
put that on.
and I'm hoping maybe someday, I know you've been talking, Rick, I've left Rick alone, but, you know, now that we're both liaisons here, but like, maybe we can just find a time, not during mud season, you're
Yeah.
busy enough, but just sit down and kind of go through things and just, I thought for a while of bothering you and saying, hey, someday you're plowing, can I just jump in and, you know, but chew your ear while you're plowing, you know, but, I decided I'd leave you alone, but. What's that?
I tried to get her going the other day, but she wouldn't.
She won?
I had to go to work.
It was only 14 minutes.
I know, it was only 14 and a half.
Well, just to be clear, I wasn't gonna, I was gonna have you drop me off at some point.
Have we got any applications for the job?
That's a question, yeah.
I haven't seen any
But the ad did just go in.
this week.
Yes.
We didn't make it last week.
Yeah.
But it did get rerun this week, okay, cause
Yeah.
I,
So,
Wait, it didn't go in last week?
yeah, I got
We were
missed
late.
last
No,
week.
We
They
were
were,
late.
We didn't get the ad.
Didn't get it in
until
in time.
late to put in.
So it's just going in this week?
no, it ran 2 weeks.
Ran 2
And then it
weeks.
skipped a week and it ran again. I think it was because I dealt with
Gotcha.
Karen and then Patty started. And
Yeah,
so there was interest, but no application filled in.
yeah.
Filled out.
Supposed to run for those 2 weeks? 'Cause
Yeah, I think it runs indefinitely until, at least my opinion is, it runs until we have some applicants.
and Jesse's question was, that's in the newspaper, right?
Yes, sorry,
Okay,
Harold.
just- yeah.
Were we going to post on Facebook?
We had kind of not decided that, so we weren't sure. I feel like it wouldn't be bad to put it out there and turn off comments.
I say put it wherever, you know, Facebook, Front Porch Forum,
We could hang some, has anybody hung any, at any of our spots, the post office?
I think, don't, Karen did do that initially. I'm pretty sure she said she was gonna do that, but we can, did she leave for the night?
Did Karen take off?
She might be in the office.
I had one guy stop for her and he asked what some of the benefits were, and he's like, I got better benefits for him.
oh, really? Rick, any thoughts that you have on how we can reach out and? I mean, how can we do better? How can we help find applicants or the
We're
people?
gonna have to buy a 1-ton and you can start driving.
I don't think you want that, Rick.
I'd offer to drive, but I'm pretty sure you'd fire me pretty quickly.
You're on the road all the time, just put a sign on your truck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we just all need to, I think we need to do whatever we can, right, to reach out and.
I think Facebook is a good place to go to.
I think it can be a good tool, but I
The
think
Chelsea
key is,
community page, is that what you
yeah,
want?
turn off notifications.
That's right.
I think anything we put has to have notifications turned off.
Do you want
Yeah,
us on
yeah,
that?
or yeah, sorry, comments, turn off comments.
Front porch forum as well?
Yep, I think anywhere and everywhere we can get it out there.
You might want to talk to the admin, because she'll take it off if you put no comment.
So
Who's the
also,
admin?
Really?
I believe the
Yes.
league's in, I'm sorry, go ahead. What was that, Gail? I'm sorry.
Oh, I put something on for the town on the front porch forum and, no comments, and she took my post off. So I asked her why, and she said, I forget what she said, but kind of pissed me off.
Why does that
So
matter?
I'm no longer posting on Facebook, so I told Karen if anything needed to be put, she could do it.
I don't blame you. I think the League of Cities and Towns also has a portal where we can advertise. Yeah, so Patty, if you don't mind looking into that, I think there's some, and if you can't find it, Gail, I've seen it before. Okay.
I know we have a lot on the agenda confirm with Mark Lemke that he would be our tree warden, but he did just bring up that he would like to meet with us at some point. He acknowledged that we're very busy, so
Yep.
I think it's not super urgent.
Well, I think, actually, maybe I responded to you. We have a plan for the town forest, that, shoot, I know his name who did it, but Kate and Mark both spoke to me at town meeting. They both had something. They said, hey, why don't we put them on? So I think that's on the list to invite them to a meeting, maybe in April, to have them come.
Perfect.
Dave Paganelli, thank you, yeah, the county forester. Like, I was like completely, yeah, we've got a lot of things. Shoot, I had a question for Rick and now I forgot what it was. Oh, just to come back to that, 110 paving, be thinking about, and I'll follow up with you as well, some things that we might want to ask for them to
Pave that.
Right.
It'd be nice to do something with this drain on the side.
Yeah.
So it's a puddle of water that sits there.
I found it one night after a meeting. Yeah, I'm not sure what we can do, but I think the idea is we'll invite them down here, but like, let's make sure we walk them through the things, and I think there's probably things that the district might want and we might want that might kind of leverage. Do you know what the drain is in front of the fire department, in front of the fire station? Is that tied into the state system? Is that like it's a hole?
Yeah, and it goes right up to I believe it goes right over to the brook.
I know it's been brought up from the fire department before, that it just over the years seems to be sinking. So, but that's not something we own. That's something that probably VTrans owns, right? Yeah. It's things like that we might be told no, but we won't know if the answer is no if we don't ask. So.
We don't even know if it's a town responsibility to take care of them, or if it's the landowner. I mean,
Used to be the landowner.
the landowner used to, and then they weren't taking care of it. We started taking care of it. Some towns, if you don't take care of your section of sidewalk, you get fined.
Fine, yeah.
But nobody could ever figure it out in Chelsea. So we just started doing it, and been doing it for, what, 10 years now, 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a local thing, right? Decision, I mean, VTrans doesn't maintain sidewalks, but, we need to put that on, I heard you.
What is that?
I heard you, and we need to, hopefully Patty can help us keep track of all these things.
I keep
And-
whispering to her.
and-
that we
and then-
need to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, lawn mowing needs to be on the agenda. Maybe we can compare notes on what needs to be on the agenda, and we can start to figure out what meetings we
That may
have.
wanna be soon if we're gonna put it out to bid.
Right.
When you said lawn,
They used,
So it's like mowing the town properties, the commons, the fields and stuff like that,
Because-
so.
Rick spent a bunch of time the last few years doing it. We've contracted it in the past. We've contracted parts of it, not all of it. So,
And as of now, Rick's gonna be way too busy to do it, so,
yeah, hopefully help is on the way, Rick. Is there a motion on the orders? Because we just passed some time while we were on this agenda item.
I move to accept the orders.
We're still getting some patrol service from Orange County, so
We need to come back and,
Yeah.
that's good, I guess.
I will second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Gail, on the orders,
yeah.
what works better for you? I mean, I think you scanned them this time and sent them to us, is that right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I didn't scan all the invoices.
okay, it was just, I didn't even get a chance to open the, So it was just the cover sheets?
We said a pink one, I think,
Okay.
front cover.
Well, no, Bill, I just wanted to chat with Gail on what's easier for Gail and what works for us, rather than poor Gail sitting here for 2.5 hours.
Well, I mean, normally I wouldn't have, I would have just
Okay.
left and told you to leave them on Karen's desk.
Okay, all right, good, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
Yeah,
so-
no, that's fine. I mean, you can even just leave them on this table and I'll just come get them in the morning.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Was there a question on the orders, guys?
No.
Oh, okay.
Seeing where Orange County was patrolling, that's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's intriguing to me that they're patrolling, from what I read in the newspaper, but, I think,
Well, I think they only had, what did they have, 4 hours or
Oh,
something?
okay.
So,
Well,
it wasn't a lot, but.
obviously, we've got a lot of things to do, and it seems like the sheriff has a lot of things on his plate, but maybe
Yeah.
once we get through this next push of, thank you, Gail.
Thanks, Gail.
Maybe once we get through this next push of, agenda items, we should put on the agenda to invite the sheriff in to just understand where they're at.
You can have it.
Thank you, Gail.
See ya.
I don't know that we have anything for, in the library appointment. I think we just said we'd put that at the next one, cause I don't even know. I mean, I guess we didn't have it on the agenda, so why don't we'll just hold off. I'll give those back to you then. I don't have, is there any other business? I don't know that we have any.
Didn't we just adjourn?
The only thing I guess I
I know we
can
accepted.
think
sorry, I was
of
late.
is,
We approved the,
Okay, proceed.
we're gonna, I mean, I'm assuming we're gonna grant access to have that road worked on, the Thor Road there.
I sent the permit already.
Thank you.
Do we have to, or are we gonna talk about whether or not we're gonna talk about either throwing the road up or doing something with that, or?
well, the way I internalized the conversation was they wanted to request to be able to work on the road to get up and running so they could get there. And that's, I didn't hear a request to say, hey, would you please discontinue it? I heard, will you allow us?
I
Okay,
think that's where he, more
That's
than once,
definitely
that's
where he
exactly
was
where he
going with
wants to
that.
go with that.
okay.
But I think short-term, you would please with.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah, no, he's, yeah, I mean, I think he's happy for now,
but I think it's temporary.
yeah, I got the feeling that he's gonna put the money into it to make it passable.
But he,
But I think if he has to go beyond that, I mean, that's kind of what he said. If he's gotta go beyond that and put 90,000 into
he
the road,
wants us to,
he wants to own the road. Is-
I think that's a conversation we'll have to have
Right.
with the board.
No,
I mean, I think
I agree.
that's something.
There was
we would-
nothing-
I think that's something we would ask from them in writing, what, that their request is, to discontinue the road or not. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess maybe I internalized it not correctly tonight. I internalized it like, we wanna get moved up here, we wanna be able to get an ambulance up here, we wanna do work on the road.
right.
well, I think
And there
that's,
was other, when I said 2 phases, I was thinking, all right, phase 1 is getting them to that, and the second phase would be
Yeah.
what to do with it long-term.
Right, and I agree, it wasn't a decision that we were gonna make tonight. or
No.
right, and I think there's a lot more to it than just deciding that we're gonna throw it up.
Oh, agreed. I mean, I
it's-
think we as a board would have to really understand, what does that mean? What is the process? And
Well,
frankly.
and what is the impact?
Yeah,
Right. Do we want to?
Right,
I
that's
mean-
what I'm saying.
Yeah. I won't say this specific to this road, but generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of,
Yeah.
you know, it's a town resource. You know, it's a town asset. It's a unique one, as he pointed out, because it does go to
But it's
just
not
one
the only
but-
property that, or only fourth class road that goes, I don't believe. But, and I can do research and find that out.
Right, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I've got some, back when Ken Colby was on the board, they did a lot of work. It was when the ancient road stuff was, and Ken's given me a lot of those maps. I think he still has a lot of stuff too, but.
Now, if he brings that, I think we've had this conversation before, but if he brings that to a class 2, do we have to maintain it at that point?
Well, so, my understanding, and I can look into this, but my understanding is this is a class 4 road.
Right.
And it's classified as a class 4 road.
Right.
And it doesn't, we would make a decision whether we wanted to bring it to a class 3 road or not. It's not just you do work and it becomes a class 3 road. It's a decision we would make.
I think that we can give him permission to upgrade it and maintain it, and it can be the quality of a second class road, but we don't have to agree to maintain it as though it is.
Right. Well,
And that's what I thought, but I weren't sure.
well, and I think there's a piece, and that's why I think it's important that, if we get the permit before he begins work, there's a site visit with Rick and whomever from the board, to understand what's being proposed for a couple of reasons. One is we are, by our own class 4 policy, and I think by statute, to maintain drainage, if you will.
Right.
He said it needs 11 cars,
That's right, I mean, that's,
but we would be liable for it.
right, that's, I mean, that's that's one person's opinion, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, it may or may not, depending on the ditching.
Right.
But to your point, Jesse, there's something potentially more needed. But then we're also required to make sure it's passable for a 4-wheel drive. And what does that mean? I mean, we've all been on class 4 roads. Class 4 roads, what does that mean? It's passable for a 4-wheel drive, right? I mean,
Right.
you know, that's a little bit different, you know.
Depends on how fast you're going.
Right, and how tall, how high up on clearance you got.
That's right,
you
yeah.
know, so, I mean, there's a discussion, and that's where I was that's why I was, at least, maybe in my own mind, I didn't do a good job breaking it up. One is just, let's get them to the point where we can prove them making the road passable so that you live there. And then the next piece is, what is the work that's gonna be done more on a permanent solution? What's the town's responsibility? What's the property owner's responsibility? You know, and that may or may not look different, you know, depending on, you know, and honestly, some of that's, I think, somewhat subjective, right? What is passable by a 4-wheel drive?
Yeah.
You know, does that mean, you know, your old beater Jeep, or does that mean, you know, Subaru wagon? I mean, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah, I think you made it clear, but I do think he'll continue to inquire about.
The discontinuance.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, as a board, we do have to maybe think about generally, and then also how would we apply it to specific instances.
I do think that it's a slippery slope if we do throw it up, because there's gonna be a lot of other people, and I know that it has been issues in this town and other towns in the
Yeah.
past. So in my opinion is, I don't think it's a road that we wanna go down.
But, I mean, I look at it from, it's a town asset.
Yeah.
And, you know, for today, it's one town asset, and 50 years from now, it might be a different town, you know, might be used as a different town asset. And to your point, Lena, I think there probably are other class 4 roads around that, I mean, I know one right in your neighborhood that used to be a class 4 road then it was legal trail, and then it was thrown up, and it's no longer accessible. So. I think, Bill, to your question, I think probably more to come on that one for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to be thinking about that discontinuance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do some research more on it too, and like, figure out like, what would our responsibilities be? So if he puts 11 culverts in it, are we as a town required to maintain those 11 culverts?
Yeah.
Or because he did it on his own, we can give him permission to maintain the culverts?
So,
And
let's talk about that. There's a guy I work with that's like the statewide guy that does the mapping and is the expert and all that stuff. So I can, if we've got questions, we could just ask Jonathan and he'd be like, he'd rattle them off like that to us, so.
well, yeah, it's definitely one thing we're gonna wanna look into.
Yeah.
Cause if he says, you know, somebody else says it only needs 5, and, you know, somebody else says it needs 11.
right.
Yeah.
And
That's
also
a lot of
the-
extra
The
maintenance.
4-foot
that we might have to
culvert
do.
at the bottom, if that's something that we need to replace
Right.
as a town road, is that something that could fall within one of the grants? I know we talked about the Maple Avenue Bridge, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we look at the condition of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how old that culvert is. I mean, the good news is it's never seen salt and, you know, but, you know, that's something we can, if there's a site visit, I'd be interested in going and looking and seeing, so.
Well, I'm assuming that. I mean, that must be another question as far as, at what point do you decide that the culvert is no good? You know, it's already a class 4, and
There's,
so if you're,
it's more about the loads that it'll take,
right,
you know, and there's no magic formula to it.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of them on the state system that, yeah. If you went to Richmond last summer on the interstate and the whole southbound barrel was closed because there was a 6-foot culvert
yeah.
that just one day looked okay and not long after was not okay. It's just, sometimes there's no real prediction, but.
Right, right.
I mean, there's, to Rita's point earlier, if it's something we needed to, we could get somebody from VTrans, you know, Chris said it too, you know, to come take a look at it and give us an opinion.
Right.
As far as the town hall, we talked about a alarm system. Is that something I should look into and get quotes on what a fire alarm system would cost so that we can at least think about it?
Well, and you might check with Katie, there might be some sort of funding for that.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of an important thing to have, so
Right.
I would assume there could be some funding for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and maybe the thing too, if you wanted to talk to Casey and say, hey, by the way, I'm really liking this whole liaison thing. But, we should have done it sooner, Lena, you were right. But it seems like, you know, it's up to you, but I mean, to me, if we said, hey, Casey, do you wanna call the Division of Fire Safety or Fire Prevention or whatever it is, and see if there's potential funding out there. Yeah, I mean, Bill's gonna build an electric fence up at the transfer station, put bacon on it, no. Well, I was glad Rick was here to bring that up, so. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Right.
Excellent. So, thank you, Chris, for our meeting next week.